Resource saving.
Hello everyone, today we will discuss background and evolution of resource saving activities. This topic is divided into 4 parts. Part 1, changing human demand for resource. Part 2, background for resource saving development. Part 3, definition and component of resource saving activities. Part 4, types and direction of resource saving. The history of human use of resources has always been dependent on what one could do with them. Earlier cavemen's use of resources was probably no more than sticks, stone, flint, and firewood. As technology advanced, humans needed more and more resources to satisfy their basic needs. For example, factories use oil, coal, and gas for production, electricity and chemical for satisfying research, and so on. As we can see in this picture, the figure 1.1 sketches the general history of human resource use over time. Here have some lines. The black curve shows population growth, which increased gradually, roughly doubling every 2 countries. This growth was made possible by the inventions of agriculture and trade. Suddenly, from around 1950 year, this curve stopped to the rate of 4 times per century. As we know, we expect the world population to double within the coming 40 years. This growth was possible due to medical technology, hygiene, and sanitation, which almost doubled life expectancy. At the same time, more food became valuable thanks to the Green Revolution with artificial fertilizers and improved crops. And then look at the think green curve. One can see GDP keeping up with this, but suddenly around the 1850 year, it rose steeply, flattened slightly during the Depression War period, but then taking off again, much severe than population. At the rate of close to 20 times per century. At the same time, GDP per person increased, which didn't mean that everyone on the planet shared in the process, but that the group of GDP vastly outran the growth in population. GDP is closely related to society use and waste of resources, most important of which is energy. The cigarette curve shows overall energy use, which before 1800 constant entirely of biomass, mainly firewood, and which followed the rate of population growth. However, suddenly in 1800, the use of coal increased at the rate of 20 times per century, partly replacing firewood, but mainly proving a new economy, the Industrial Revolution. Then from 1900 years, oil took over, while coal tapered to the rate of 4 times per century, still keeping up with population. The reason this curve discussed here is to show that resource use is closely linked to the economic output. It follows then that nearly all the planet's sources following a similar pattern, and that their exploitation is bound to grow at the rate of at least 20 times per century. How about this drastic increase in the oil? It can caused by population increase, growth of labor force, increased wealth, energy using inventions, energy intensive products, no fuel use, convenience, and so on. This all will lead to resource collapse. Resource collapse is very terrible. Situation. Authors are sensitive to the way they are exploited and at which rate, even renewable one are. Let's look at the history behavior of some resources in order to get a feel for their possible problems. Some of those problems are rather counterintuitive. For example, let's consider cropland soil. How soil degrades depends entirely on the type of soil, the kind of irrigation, climate, and slope. However, in all cases, almost the same curve is followed. First, the soil lost fertility rapidly after deforestation. The forest humans is consumed rapidly by parasites and fuel as the soil is ploughed in order to keep fertility up. The soil is fertilized artificially, but after some 10 to 20 years, the soil begins to degrade, first slowly, but then accelerating is this day. Eventually, bare desert-like soil remains without the fertilized topsoil. Irrigation in dry climates appears to accelerate the process. Many soils being lost in only 10 years. Flat soil in the temperature zeros where rainfall equals evaporation capologist. Background for source-saving development have about energy background, ecological background, political background, social background. As for economic background, the growth of price on energy resource became impetus for resource-saving activities, including energy saving in developed countries during the 17th into 18th years of 20th century. Only due to two world energy crises in 1973 and 1979, average level of energy prices increased by 4 to 6 times. That led to corresponding increase in all other production costs. Panacea from raising price for scarce natural resource was found improving source efficiency of economic systems through implementation of the least achievement of scientific and technology progress. As for energy crisis, first time 1973 to 1974. Second time is for 1979 to 1980. Third time 1990 is the Gulf War. Reduction of material and energy intensity of products produced in developed countries most clearly was after the oil shock of the 1970s. Thus, reduction of energy intensity of gross domestic product during 1970 to 1990 has amounted to, for example, in the USA, it's 46%. Japan is 35%. In the West European country, it's 35 to 45%. Fast development of STP and information and communication technologies at the end of 20th century, beginning of 21st century creates opportunities for the discovery of new mineral resource, cost reduction of exploration work, progress in the implementation of resource-saving activities, development and implementation of innovative technologies into practice of economic management, reducing the relative scarcity of most natural resource, created opportunity for transition of developed countries to resource self-sufficiency. About the ecological background, the negative consequence of increased production in developing countries and development of industrial production in developing countries, increased level of pollution and depletion rate of natural resource, globalization of environmental problems, resource-saving activities that use the latest result of STP provides a saving of natural resource per unit of production. Reduction of environmental pollution by using more environmentally advanced technologies, reducing waste generation and increasing recycling is almost choiceless way for further economic development. The introduction of the concept Factor 4, Factor 10, Factor X, zero waste that directly correspond to areas of source saving provide an extremely high economic and environmental impact. Through the introduction of energy-saving innovation, one of the world's largest corporate manufacturers, the company Interface, received profit more than $200 million during 1996 to 2002. Company DuPont reduced its energy consumption by a third, saving more than $17 million every year, and reducing twice the greenhouse gas emissions per pound of its production. In 2000 year, DuPont saving were more over $400 million due to increased source efficiency of production. Modern satisfactory concept that makes an important contribution to clearly production process is a concept of zero waste by some people. Is Eastern lines in the return waste to the production cycle, organization of circulation of substance used in the technology cycles, involves changing society approach to waste production and consumption. The transition from considering waste as a polluting substance that need to control to the potential source of energy and materials that can provide companies by additional benefits. About political background, actualization of resource saving has a political background. On the one hand, the pressure of developed countries to developing states concerning the adoption and the implementation of international environmental duties necessitates the transition to sustainable development at source-saving base. On the other hand, activation of economically profitable source-saving activity provide opportunities to overcome the country's dependence of the import or export of natural resource. Possible transition to self-resource providing. Increasing of political security degrees of countries. Due to the conversation, the degree of energy self-sufficiency for countries of Europe has increased significantly, especially for 1974 to 1986. Currently, the European import about half of the total consumed energy compared to 2/3 of 30 years ago. The United Kingdom and the Netherlands had the highest degree of energy self-sufficiency. Denmark had moved from total dependence on energy imports in 1974 to 6% self-sufficiency in energy resources in 1992. The volume of U.S. oil imports new is only 1.9% of its GDP. Instead of this, scale of resource provide model island by 94% of all export revenues. Though, based on this data, it should be noted almost complete political and economic dependence of developing country from developed country. This is about social background. As for social background, the growth of the population, primarily by increasing it in developing countries, accelerates problems of overpopulation and social stratification in the global and regional scales. Today, we can observe widening gap in incomes in developed and developing countries. At the beginning of the 21st century, the gap in the all of economic potential of the developed and developing countries didn't exceed 3 times, and the difference in size of the average income reached only 30 to 50% as a result of the Industrial Revolution. By the aggregated estimation of some people from 1750 to 1990, the gap in the average living standard between the citizens of European and developing countries increased 8 times, and according to other research from 17 to 15 times. Here we can make some case. This company, about the company IBM, have about 400,000 people. These people is employees. Burma's population is about 48 million people. IBM income is approximately equal to national income of Burma. General Motors employs about 750,000 people, and its peers' population is more than 75 million people. National increase of General Motors and ECP compares short period, maybe 70 to 80s of 20th centuries, during which developing countries can be accelerated their growth by monopolistic pricing of natural resources, has remained in the past. A striking example is Nigeria, where from 1970 years to 1980 years, GNP per capita increased from $200 to $800, and in 1985 returned to its original value, not exceeding $300 per capita per year. Source saving in the information society. Analysis of the conditions that determine the priority of resource conservation in today's world is indicating eventually wide opportunities to solve complex problems with it. However, the main feature of this sphere of activity lately is innovative and informative nature, which allows not only to respond to today's challenges but also to prevent problems, taking into account the changes in both external and internal environmental of enterprises, which regulate this trend. The role of source saving is changing in the model world from the desired reference point for further development of developing countries and the priority of product policy for the countries of the former Soviet Union. It gradually becomes the main driving force of economic growth in the developed country in acquiring innovative informational natural in general. Taking into account the retrospective analysis of resource saving process and conditions, current trend of the development, there can be present three stages of evolution of resource saving activities that can cover a relatively short period of time, as we can table 1.1. First stage is cover the time period of 70 to 80s of the 20th century, when it became necessary to move to resource-saving type of the economic development, which would be accompanied by the decrease of technology impact on the environment, enhancement of social wealth, reducing the rate of depletion of natural resources without damage to economies. About the second stage of resource conservation, which was marked by the rapid development of STP in 90s of the 20th century, lead to the appearance of new concepts in which the leading role in balancing social economic needs and environmental constraints was assigned to innovative resource saving, low waste technologies that significantly reduced the volume of natural resource involving to production process and the volume of generated waste. Today, at the third time, one can observe qualitative new trends that are implemented in the progress of dematerialization, computerization, green the economy. What's this source? What's this source saving? About the definition of the source, have several means, adjuvant, stock, source of something, the means without which social product is impossible. Definition of source saving: the extent of different interpretation of term source and their classification, complex nature of source saving, and breadth of is result lead to different interpretations of their term source saving. Let's consider the generalization of source saving definition. Source quantity and reserves. A further distinction is made between service and source quantity. Reserves the known quantities at economical concentration and locations. The resource quantity of the mineral may include uneconomic quantities. Resources are extracted and refined use energy, depending on how much social wish to pay for the resource. Similarly, unlimited quantity of energy and other cheaper resources can be applied to mine those that once were considered economy. In case of fossil fuel, however, its extraction is not limited by what one is willing to pay, but by how much energy it costs to discover, drilling, pump, and distribute. If more energy is needed to lift 1 unit of oil from a well than the energy content of that unit, then that well has become uneconomic, regardless of the amount of fuel still left behind. Reserves are known about in the course of mineral exploration. Some exploration is done by these governments in order to assess the wealth of the national. Some is done by mining companies. If the demand is high, the companies will be encouraged to step on their exploration in order to find more reserves. Thus, the quantity is known as reserves. It is not necessarily the maximum. As present stock run out, more reserves will be discovered. Eventually, miners discover fewer and fewer reserves. That leads one to conclude that their minimum is close to being reached. It's believed that fossil oil have reached such a state. Resource sustainable. About sustainable, social has never really asked whether extraction of the source is sustainable. Take for instance fossil fuel. We know that is not self-revenue and those unsustainable, but only it does run out at some time soon. 40 to 50 years for oil, but the meaning and use of it have provided to cause serious environmental problems as well. What means sustainably? Means is a number of things. Sustainable of the source extraction rate does not exceed reasonable rate, or the resource being so abundant that extraction can process for many hundreds or thousands of years. Sustainability of extraction benefits must outweigh cost. Often public subsidies are used or required to make extraction possible. Sustainable of supply. Supply must be guaranteed over a number of years in order to justify the stay-up cost of mining, processing, marketing, while selling, retailing, and industrial use. Supply must also be assured in order to fulfill contracts. Source saving is an activity measures process a complex of organizational and technical actions which accompany with all stages of object's life cycle and directed on rational use effective expenditure of resource. The aim of resource saving is increasing social, ecological, economic efficiency of production while reducing its resource complexity. Reaching of the mean of resource saving involves the implementation of mine tasks. According to the task and the principle, resource saving includes different components. Total health, technological, organizational, and economic, legal, marketing, educational, research, social, ecological. About this one component, we will know. Technological component. This technological component includes the development and implementation of source efficiency products and technologies, include low and non-waste one, accelerating the timing of their deployment, successive changing of generation of equipment, technologies and materials that create technical preconditions for long-term source saving strategies, origination and economic of the source saving involve the formation of self-reproduction, economic measuring of resource saving process realization, organizational and economic condition for implementation of the state. The legal component determines the legal framework for resource-saving projects. This component includes certification, standardization, regulation, licensing, legal measures, and economic incentive for source saving. And about education, is timely information business into the and public about the business of resource-saving measures, product, service, technical and technology innovation, opportunities, benefit of their use, changes, legislation relating to source conservation, sustainable ways of using resources at household level and in the industry production. This includes a system of training and retraining, advanced training in the field of resource saving, marketing, or commercial competent is to promote resource-saving technology and products in the market, to form for the customer positive motivation of their purchase and use, creating the image of green products for resource-saving products. Research activity provide a scientific basis for further development and testing for of resource-saving technologies, materials, learning the basic patterns of resource-saving process, the spectrum of their in-fact potential customers, and the information of scientific and methodological tools for resource saving. The information for scientific, the methodological tools for resource saving. And the social is a social component. Is the impact of resource-saving project to changing the welfare of the population, its lifestyle and the quality of life, improve working and living conditions, reducing levels of occupational injuries, and so on. Ecological improve of environmental quality as a result of resource saving. that include improvement of the environmental quality, reduction of population levels and the volume of natural resources that are involved in industrial production. The complex interaction of all components ensures the final result, resource saving, that is to improve the social, ecological, economic efficiency of social production. The drivers for increase in resource efficiency of production and consumption at different levels of management are factors of resource saving. The most important of them are satisfic and technological progress, interbranch and interbranch in structure shifts, changing of source price, investments, institutional factor, social and ecological change, globalization process, shadow economy. This last question is a type and direction of resource saving. Review the publication on issues of resource saving and some paper and some article. We know type of the resource saving. Type of resource saving resource have material saving, water saving, energy saving, labor saving, stock saving. About content of process, have rational use process, effective use process, resource, saving of resource, direct and indirect structure, opportunity of realization, have potential actual. Potential is theoretical, technological, possible, and economically feasible. Scale of process, global, national, regional, sectoral, functional, local, and enterprise level. Stage of resource life cycle. Resource saving at the stage of extraction of initial raw material, feedstock, processing of raw material, production of resource, consumption of resource, transportation of the resource, storing the resource, utilization of resource, manufacturing of end product. Stage of product life cycle. Resource saving at stage of exploratory design, industry designs, manufacturing of industrial design and its testing, scale of financial needs, large scale, small scale, orientation, of effects, constructive, destructive. Considerate classification of type of direction of resource saving help to understand better the social, ecological, economic nature of resource saving process and the diversity of their expression. Until now, we are know about some information from this topic. Next one. We have one question to thinking. What are the factors contribution to the increase in source efficiency? Okay, thank you for your attention.